Greetings, this is M Squared, and we are going to solve some simple trig functions. Before we get started, let me remind you of this handy-dandy little cheat sheet here. If you don't have one of these made, you really should, because it's so helpful when you're solving these types of equations. You need to know your identities, your reciprocal identities, your Pythagorean identities might come in handy a little bit later. I don't think we need those for this one. But this little chart, unless you've memorized it, some teachers make you memorize when sine is 1/2, and then knowing in which quadrants sine, cosine, and tangent are positive and negative. So we'll use that in a minute. We'll start to solve. So these are some basic equations. These are all linear equations, and so we'll do some quadratic equations in the next lesson. So these are pretty simple, and they have an interval, and that's important to know because we only want the answers between 0 and 360. You know that these are periodic functions, so they go on forever and ever. They have an infinite amount of solutions if an interval is not given. So make sure that your intervals are given for this when you're doing this kind. Okay, so the first one says sine of x equals -1/2. We need to know when that's true. So sometimes I'll just draw a little quadrant there, and I'll say, well, when is sine negative? Remember, sine always goes with y. So we have our x-axis and our y-axis. Up for y, up is positive and down is negative. So I know I'm in these two quadrants, quadrants 3 and 4. When is sine 1/2? If you have not memorized that, then that's when you need this handy-dandy little chart. Sine is 1/2 at 30 degrees, or in radians, pi over 6, but since it says here is 0 to 360, we're going to use that 30 degree. So although it's 1/2 at 30 degrees, I need to know where it's -1/2. Well, that would be, again, in these two quadrants. So I know that I'm 30 degrees down. That means this is the reference angle. I'm 30 degrees down from the x-axis. So this is 180 degrees, so 30 degrees down would be 150. This is 360, so 30 degrees down would be 330. Did I just say 150? Okay, 30 degrees down. I'm not subtracting, that would be up. 30 degrees down is not 150, it's 210. So since I know that these are 30, then I know that this is going to be 210 and 330. So those are my answers of where sine is -1/2. And if you're not sure, you could always just get out your calculator and say sine of 210. And that's -1/2. And if I had made that mistake and then checked, if I had said 150, then we would have seen that it was +1/2 and known that I'd done something wrong. Okay, the next one. So cosine, when is cosine squared root of 3 over 2? That's the first thing we figure out. It's at 30 degrees as well. So we know that it's at 30 degrees. And cosine is negative because cosine is x. We know that it's going to be negative in these two quadrants because when you go left on the x-axis, that's when you have it negative. So since we know that these are going to be 30, and this is 180, we go subtract 30 and add 30. So that's 150 and 210. Those are our answers there. Okay, when is tangent 1? Notice I'm ignoring the negative and initially because I don't have negatives on my chart. So tangent is 1 at 45 degrees. So now I know I'm at 45 degrees, and tangent, well, let me show you this little thing. All students take calculus. That's our little acronym for for what's positive and what's negative. So you see the big plus sign? That's our quadrants. Those separate our quadrants, but I just say it's a plus sign because what this does is tell you where things are positive. All the functions are positive in this first quadrant. Sine and its buddy, remember sine's buddy is cosecant. No, I didn't put those on here. Well, let me do that really quick. Oh yeah, I did, right there. Sine's buddy is cosecant, and secant's buddy is cosine. So, sine and cosecant are positive here, tangent and cotangent are positive here, and cosine and secant are positive here. So when is tangent negative? Well, if it's positive here, because everything's positive there, and it's positive here, then it's negative in these two quadrants. And since we already notice that it's at 45 degrees, then we know our reference angle is 45 degrees here. Remember, reference angles always are how long it takes to get to the x-axis from your line. So 180 minus 45 is 135, and 360 minus 45 is 315. So our two answers there are 135 and 315. Okay, next one. When is tangent square root of 3 over 3 at 30 degrees? So again, we already decided when it was negative. It's in these two quadrants. So we have our 30 here and here. So we take 180 and minus 30, so we get 150, and then we take 360 and minus 30, and we get 330. So oops, I'm so sorry, I did not read directions. Okay, so let's change this to pi over 6, and this would be 6 pi over 6. I like to, instead of just saying pi when I'm dealing with pi's over 6, to put 6 over 6. Well, 6 over 6 is 1, but it just helps, because if 6 over 6 is here and we have to subtract 1 over 6, then that leaves me 5 over 6. And same thing here, if this is 12 pi over 6, which is 2 pi, and I know I have to subtract or go down pi over 6, then I know I'm at 11 pi over 6. So those are the two answers, which are the same as these, but just in radians, because they asked us to do it in radians. So I changed this to positive because I noticed that there were a lot of negatives. So we need to know when secant is positive 2. Well, remember, secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I want to know which one of these flipped over would be 2. That's this one. So I know I'm at a 60-degree reference angle. So dealing with cosine, remember cosine and secant are positive here and here, and I know I'm at a 60-degree reference angle, or a pi over 3. That's the radian version of 60. So this is 3 pi over 3, this is 6 pi over 3. So I know I'm at pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. Okay, when is sine 0? Last one, sine is 0 at 0. Where else? Well, when sine is 0, that means sine is y, so I'm not up and I'm not down. I would have to be straight right or straight left. So that's at 0 and pi. And you can see on this little chart, remember, sine is y, and y is 0 here and here. And the book has, almost every book has one of these little charts, maybe in the reference section in the back or in the front flap. So it's a valuable little chart. You might want to get one, copy it, and use it because it's nice to have. So my answers here are 0 and pi. And that is a little lesson on solving these simple trig functions. Good luck with that. And this is M Squared signing out.